everybody, it's me back again, Big Boned at FFB with FF Canuck 99. We are back. It's us two. It's me. It's him. It's him. It's me. What are we doing? This is a new show. It's the same show, but it's a new show. So it's the old show, but it's new. It's just different. This is the weekend warm-up. However, we have changed the name to Dynasty Obsession, no off-season. You know why? Because we're obsessed with Dynasty. Dynasty is an obsession. It requires that obsession to be good in Dynasty. And in Dynasty, when you're obsessed, there is no off-season. How you doing, Mike?
Man, I'm doing awesome. You know, we're not having to scramble.
That's great. Okay, thanks, Canada. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Let's do it.
I hear there's a lot of snow up there.
Oh, man. Feet. Yeah, the whole foot. My whole roof is full of snow.
Wow, that was a good accent. That was a good accent. All right. We're gonna get into this. I'm gonna hit the intro. Producer, we don't have a producer. Hit the intro, and then we'll explain a little bit about what we're doing here. And let's go. The sky keeps on turning. Oh, shit. Sorry. Hey, everybody. It's me, Big Boned. I'm here. Canuck is here. I got Mike Grindberg. He's been grinding. I came up with a new one for you, Mike Pimpberg. That's not funny. All right. So, welcome. Absolutely welcome to our new, old, same show, different name, same guys. You might notice something different about us.
Yes. We're on the opposite side this time around.
We're ambidextrous.
Yeah.
We're amphibians.
Yeah, actually, Brendon is actually going to be cheering for the Chiefs this weekend, and I'm going to be cheering for the Raiders. So we both
absolutely
have a lot.
Not true.
We both have a lot to cheer for, don't we?
No, that's absolutely not true. Not true. Especially not when it's like Mike McDaniel, the story of the year for me at least he's not the story. I like Mike McDaniel. I like watching him on hard Canucks. And you know, I'm not a huge fan of the Dolphins, but they're fun to watch. I do, however, have a prediction for this game, and obviously this is going to drop after the game. I don't think Miami has a chance in this game. I don't think their entire defense is like in the fucking infirmary. They're going against a Chiefs defense that is pretty stout. If you follow Player Profiler News on YouTube, some dude growing a nice snow beard, in the snow, reported a day earlier than everybody else, got the scoop on the weather in Kansas City this weekend. And it's going to be wintry. All right. So welcome to the Dynasty Obsession No Offseason episode 1. What are we doing here?
Yeah, man.
Well, just like the name implies, there is no offseason. I don't know if my hand got in the way of that. Mike and I are here to shepherd you through the doldrums, the non-counting season. We're not accumulating stats right now. We're just stacking our rosters. We're talking roster assessment and construction. We're talking college players. We're talking the Senior Bowl. We're talking mock drafts. We're talking rankings adjustments. We're talking combine numbers. We're talking mock drafts. We're talking draft landing spots. We're talking mock drafts. We're talking rookie camp rumors, mock drafts, Fishbowl 14 prep with mock drafts, training camp signal and noise. What's the signal? What's the noise? Preseason game overhype. 53-man roster decisions, more mock drafts, and final pre-draft rankings. That's a lot. And then we're going to start bringing you the weekend warm-up season 2. That'll be coming up right before week 1. You know, there's so much to do over the next 8.5 months. You can't sleep in Dynasty unless you're just waiting to like go join unless you abandon a bunch of teams, made them orphans, and you're waiting for some redraft leagues or like new startups. You got to build that roster, and we're going to take you through that. We're going to go step by step throughout the whole next 8 months, and we're going to bring you the content that you crave. We're going to talk about roster construction and all that stuff. We'll get into that. And our first segment for the Dono Show, Dynasty Obsession, no off-season, Dono. The Dono Show is the weekly Dynasty calendar. So this is something that I'm going to be bringing to you every week. We're going to talk about where we're at in the year and what that means in Dynasty, because there are trends throughout the year. Ebbs and flows. So in January, in the fantasy football world, it's a lot like all of the calendar seasons put together. You've got your autumn. You've recently just harvested your trophies or your cash winnings, Mike. You've got your winter. It's the death of your redraft leagues. And let's face it, for some of you, your dynasty teams. Some of whom I have to find replacement owners for to take over abandoned orphans in leagues I commish. So sad. Winter. Seasonal depression. You've got your hopeful spring. You're making trades. You're doing your due diligence with the waiver wire. We'll get into that in a second. And you've got the sun shining like summer on the new births, your rookie draft declares and your go backs, your Quinn Ewers and Emeka Egbuka that went back. Mm-hmm. And you got your declares like Marvin Harrison Jr. and all the guys that we're looking for to come out and stack our dynasty lineups with in the rookie drafts. So January is my favorite time of the dynasty year because everybody is back to equal. Now, Mike and I are in a dynasty league together, and in that league, Mike was the champion, and I was the not. I guess I won the toilet bowl. I was in last place, wasn't I? But guess what? Right now, we're both 0-0, baby. So, we're both making moves. We're doing things like that. Now, with the seasons analogy, there's a time and a season for everything, and that is what this Dynasty calendar segment is all about. So I'm going to rename January.
Good idea.
January is now called roster assessment. So that doesn't mean looking at what you have. That doesn't mean looking at what you have. We've got action items coming, baby. I'm going to tell you what to do with looking at what you have. Right now, as we enter the NFL playoffs, we'll be looking for continuation of breakouts. Go back and watch our video from last week, the part 3 of our weekend warm-up. Mike brought you 10 guys who are going to break out further in 2024. We're going to be looking for those guys like Jaden Reed, he touched on. Samuel Laporta, he didn't, but we're looking for Samuel Laporta, especially watching him over the next couple weeks. How's he dealing with injury? He practiced today, so that's a really good sign for the playoffs. So Samuel Laporta, if he plays, Kenneth Gainwell, no. So we're going to be watching guys continue their breakouts throughout the playoffs, but we're also going to be monitoring injuries. Like what happens if Devon Achane wrecks his knee in the sub-zero temperatures in a loss to the Chiefs, only on Peacock? Well, we've got grades on his rookie season, now placement in the rankings, etc. But that would change everything. So his injury would change everything. So we're monitoring stuff like that. Okay. So know your roster. Know your opponent's rosters too. I got a competitor who he knows other people's rosters better than they do. Now, the rookie draft season is also here, and things are changing by the day. For example, in our last video, I discussed my top 10 rookie draft values. And then just today, like I said, Emeka Egbuka, the Ohio State wide receiver that I've been knocking on wood for since I wrote about him before the season, he decided to return to Ohio State. Quinn Ewers just said, same thing. But as expected, Marvin Harrison Jr. is entering the draft, and somebody I know had the scoop on TikTok for Player Profiler News on that. Looked a lot like you, Mike Lindberg.
It was me.
Pardon.
Polar Seltzer.
Not a sponsor. But hey, Polar Seltzer, if you want to reach out at Big Boned FFB, slide into my DMs and we'll work something out. I'll mention you every show. I don't even need money. Just like send me free 8 packs of Polar every day. All right. So Marvin Harrison Jr. declared, I would too if I was the wide receiver 1 in the entire world. Now, what do the impending All-Star game / pre-draft / combine season mean? It means that it's time now to trade overachievers and roster bloat for picks, because pick value is about to explode, and I mean implode. Pick value has been super high for a while. January marks the end of the pick value portion of the calendar year. The season to buy picks starts around October, when player values are highest and owners are combat fishing, like shoulder to shoulder, trying to like weasel their way into playoff depth, making trades for like Jaden Reed and Tyjae Spears, things like that. So over the next month, that's going to change, and picks will be at their most expensive right around the end of February, beginning of March, when we start getting into combine season. We're going to have enough hype for the next month and 6 weeks, really, that people are going to start salivating for those rookie picks. Oh my God. If I have the number 1 pick, I can exploit everybody and build my team because somebody wants Marvin Harrison Jr. or Caleb Williams or whatever. So those pick values like skyrocket right now. Get in while you can. Like in the next couple of weeks, that's all going to change. How are we handling this? Well, it starts with roster assessment. Like I said, we are poring over our rosters. We're trying to find and identify the most valuable expendable pieces. Valuable expendable pieces. That's the key. Mm-hmm. There are expendable pieces where you look at them and you're just like, drop. Then there's other guys who maybe somebody else is going to take a flyer on some sort of upside that they have. Maybe it's we'll talk about names in a second. So we're pouring over those rosters. We're trying to find the most valuable expendable pieces. I'm going to take a roster from one of the leagues that I'm in, for example. Now, this is a super flex league. So let's start with the quarterback position. We've got Patrick Mahomes, Brock Purdy, and this is where it starts to get a little dicey. Malik Willis, Jake Haener, and Hendon Hooker. This is what is known as no depth. So knowing this was a playoff team, we've got to work on that depth in the draft. If it's a playoff team, we're coming out of the pocket with like mid first round draft picks, second round draft picks. So you don't want to really trade those draft picks away because you're going to be able to get a viable super flex rookie quarterback. Now let's go to the running back room. We got Kyron Williams, Tony Pollard, James Cook, Alexander Madison, and then we get into Breida Foreman, Jeff Wilson, Justice Hill, and Boston Scott. And this is what I'm talking about. So when you're assessing your roster, you have to know what you have and what you don't have. At quarterback, you don't have that super flex that can fill in on bye weeks and stuff like that. So that's going to become a target. You're going to wait until draft picks increase in value before you try and trade one away to get a quarterback to fill in that third spot. But while draft picks are high, you want to find these guys on your roster who may bring back some draft pick value. All right, let's start with Kyron and Cook. They're obviously the starters in that room. There's only 5 starting spots that a running back could fit in. So we don't really need a whole lot of running backs on this roster. There are a lot of roster spots, but roster spots don't equate to starting production, obviously. So we're looking at Kyron. We're looking at Cook. Boston Scott, gone. He's a drop. Breida, gone. He's a drop. That leaves us with Tony Pollard, Alexander Madison, Deontay Foreman, and Justice Hill, and Jeff Wilson. Okay, those are the only depth that have any value. Wilson's value is questionable. You might be able to convince another owner that Mostert might be on his way out. He and Achane dealt with injuries. But I mean, really, it's going to be those two guys next year, and Wilson is going to be like way down there.
Dust.
Justice Hill, kind of the same thing. Keaton Mitchell comes back. It's hard to roster Ravens running backs. Pollard and Madison. That's where it starts getting interesting. Deontay Foreman's kind of a throwaway. Hill and Wilson are throwaways. We'll call them Hilson. They're throwaways to add quantity in a deal. So one of the things about the psychology of the deal, the art of the deal, if you will, to borrow, is, and this gets a lot of criticism from people who know what they're talking about, where quantity doesn't necessarily equal quantity, or quantity doesn't equal quality. But it's true that if you have one guy who's got a lot of value and you're throwing him out there for one pick, even if what you add isn't of value, like say it's Deontay Foreman, throw in that other guy instead of like dropping him. At least maybe you take Pollard and Justice Hill and you can get a third rounder, or you take Pollard and Madison and get a second rounder. Somebody's still out there dreaming on Madison. Trust me. I tried to bang the table against Madison all offseason, and people still were drafting him higher than they should have. So Madison is kind of down. Foreman may start talks. Throw Foreman out there. Hey, this guy, he had more yards per carry or whatever metric you can find. Just get the conversation started with somebody. Trading is a negotiation. It's not just like a, hey, let's do this. No, I don't want to. Okay, leave it alone. You got to stick a carrot out there. Lead them to it. Madison is kind of down, but Pollard is the perfect trade piece. Okay. Let's package Pollard and Madison together. We're looking at a 24 second rounder for that. Make that deal. And the reason, what do you think you can get for that second in May? A lot more than you can get for that second right now.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it's written in my notes is awesome, and I should have kept going. What do you think you can get for awesome. That? What do you think you can get for that second in May? I'm going to tell you, Mike. Drake. A depth. I don't know what happened to my throat. I'm going to tell you, Mike, a depth piece better than Pollard and Madison.
Oh, for sure.
Right? So draft pick values are at their lowest right now. Trade some pieces away, get that pick in your roster, whatever. And then in May, when that value goes up, then you can flip it for somebody who might help your roster better, like a third quarterback, a Derek Carr type, a Kirk Cousins coming off of injury, an Aaron Rodgers coming off of injury. You might be able to get away with sending a third or a fourth for some guys like that. Guys that are going to help, but don't necessarily need to be in your starting lineup to win a championship.
I love it.
You going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, like, you need to be also, like, and you kind of touched base on this a little bit too, is this, like, look at your opponent's rosters and know their team better than they do. And honestly, make a move that's going to, benefit them too, because they're going to want to be, trade partners with you down the line. If you're making their teams better, you're making your team better anyway. And if you're a savvy owner, your team's going to be better no matter what. So, make those moves, make your teammates better, and you'll be a better trading partner, and people will be more inclined to trade with you. And when you need a pick, and you're making a championship run, and that other owner is on the slide down, and it's you or another guy, and you've been good to him the whole way down, who do you think he's going to trade with? Or right. Her, or whoever it is, right? They're going to trade with you because you've made those relationships and you've made their team better down the line too. So, yeah, I love it.
And it doesn't even have to be about making the teams better. It could just be about easy negotiations, friendly negotiations, being polite, saying thank you, maybe starting discussions and then ending them and saying, hey, we didn't get get something done right now, but let's work together in the future kind of thing. Always negotiate from the side of looking forward and not this is the be all end all, because you can ruin a lot of relationships with stuff like that, and people aren't going to want to work with you later on. And I think the major theme of this whole segment right now is the calendar and the fact that values go up and down throughout the year, and right now is the time to
For sure.
accumulate as many draft picks as you can for some of the scraps that are on your roster. Obviously, I'm not saying go out and trade James Cook to get a draft pick that's going to increase in value later on. I'm saying keep Cook, go get that draft pick, and then later on you can get another Cook with that draft pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go through your roster, cut guys that are there just because there are 9 bench spots that don't give you anything, and take advantage of the ebbs and flows of player and pick value throughout the year. That's what we're doing here with this podcast. That's why you're following us. That's why you're listening. Buy the picks while you still can. All right, and that will lead us into Mike's segment, where you can either take advantage of the risers, getting you lots of picks, or getting out from under the fallers now before pick costs get to be too much. Are you guys taking notes? You're taking notes, right? You're taking notes on what to do. You're taking notes on these players that we're going to be talking about. Because we're gonna help you win. So, Dynasty risers and fallers. Who's your first riser, Mike?
I've been beating the drum, and it's not out of you're probably. This is probably at this point you're like, hey, Mike, stop talking about this guy, but it needs to be said, and I think it's going to be huge next year. And if you followed it, you probably already have him on your roster, and now is the time where you're going to be able to, either make a move to move up or keep him, and that's Tajay
Stop
Spears.
talking about this guy, Mike. I'm kidding. Keep talking about him. I want to hear it because
all right.
I want to hear this.
Okay. So, someone forgot to tell Tajay Spears he couldn't play professional football without an ACL in his right knee.
Meniscus. He doesn't have a meniscus.
Meniscus. His Hines Ward played without one, right? So why can't Tajay Spears? It's hard to imagine that Spears doesn't have a meniscus in his knee when you watch his impressive tape. Spears is as elusive as they come, and those explosive plays are a thing of beauty. Spears is a good pass blocker. He can catch the ball well. Derrick Henry just had his emotional goodbye in Tennessee. If that's not foreshadowing, a season on the horizon for Spears, I don't know what is. In his final game this year, Henry had a monster game, but so did Spears. Spears had 2 touchdowns, even with Henry in the lineup. Tajay Spears finished 2023 as the RB34. Spears is in line for a big role next year. He has shown us he can be more than just a complimentary back without his meniscus. So he can run, catch. He's easily a top 24 back next year, even with the uncertainty in Tennessee. Get him now while the price is low if you still can.
Yeah. And with running backs, we're talking about top 24 is RB1, RB2 in your lineup. Top 36, which at 34, that's a guy that you can kind of count on in the flex spot. And I'll say this again, like I've said a million times, I in most PPR leagues, I will opt for a wide receiver in the flex spot just because of their potential to outscore running backs on average. Now, you have some guys who are pass catching running backs that can spike bigger than wide receivers, and Tajay Spears is one of them. They do have the touchdown options in goal line situations are much higher for running backs. So a guy like Spears that can find a hole from the 3-yard line and explode into the end zone, he's going to have more opportunities to do that throughout the year than a wide receiver who is, trying to run out of the slot against a goal line defense, and the field is compacted and all that stuff. So a guy like Spears, he's going to bring you a whole lot more points, even from that RB34 spot, because that's still kind of in line for your flex 1, 2, 3. So even this year, in the games that Spears was playing, he was absolutely startable, and he just tore it up at the end of the season. So be on the lookout for that dude. He is absolutely a riser.
Okay, another one here is Garrett Wilson. Okay, so his elite target share, no matter whom is throwing him the ball, is something to look out for. Wilson's stock plummeted this year, widely being drafted as the Dynasty wide receiver 5 in startups this offseason. Wilson isn't even being talked about much anymore as even a top 8 guy. Wilson's 27.4% target share is top 10. Give him a competent quarterback and more scoring opportunities, and he will have a huge year and he will be a steal. This is Wilson's absolute floor. Rodgers will be back, and he says he's committed for more than 1 year. With Breece Hall looking like the next smash RB, this Jets offense can only get better. It can't get any worse. Wilson is going to explode next year. Look out for him.
It's funny how values kind of they go up and they go down, and then they finally they settle a little bit. Garrett Wilson is a guy who, especially in redraft leagues, I was taken as my first wide receiver. I am an advocate for zero RBs in some situations, but in a lot of my redraft leagues, I'll take running backs around the round 1-2 turn, and then Garrett Wilson was usually available as the 5th wide receiver off the board, and I had a lot of stock in him as my first wide receiver taken. It was supposed to be a big, huge year for Garrett Wilson, and it didn't come. It was nice to see it come out of Chris Olave. It makes Olave's cachet, his stock, go higher because he's on a similar trajectory. Only Garrett Wilson dealt with the injury of a Hall of Fame quarterback, and Olave didn't really have to deal with that. So yeah, I love Garrett Wilson. I love him for next year. I love capitalizing on somebody who had high hopes for him and is just kind of out on him now. Oh, Garrett, he really bit me in the butt this year. Go out and get him. And he's the kind of guy that you can trade away Pollard and Madison, get that second round pick. And then when that second round pick is increased in value, go grab yourself a Garrett Wilson when player values are down and pick values are up. So love him.
Yeah, I think his situation, his talent, he's ready to go. Now, I got a good one here, and I think this is kind of a sleeper, and some of us that have been following our work know about him already or should know about him because and have them on their rosters, but I'm talking about Dontayvion Wicks. We've been talking about him for a couple of weeks, and the more I watch him, the more I like him, and the more I'm convinced that he will be there in the long haul. Wicks has the highest receiving grade from weeks 10 to 18 and the second most yards per route run amongst all rookie wide receivers. In the last 3 games Wicks appeared, he is the wide receiver 8 during those 3 games. He has a 16.4 target share, going for 14 receptions for 187 yards, but the most impressive part is his 3 touchdowns. And those weren't even in the red zone. None of those were red zone looks, so that's even better. In those 3 games, he converted 50% of Green Bay's touchdowns. Wicks is a rookie, and he will only get better. I am not worried about Wicks when the team is fully healthy. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are an afterthought for me at this point. Wicks should rise up and be draftable in the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range next year. I'm expecting Wicks to be a wide receiver 3 flex play for most weeks in 2024. Get him on your radar now and get him on the cheap.
Somebody that Dontayvion Wicks this year or going into 2024 reminds me a lot of is Rashid Shaheed going into the 2023 season. He had a big second half of the year, he flashed some big time skills. And again, I'm talking about New Orleans, but a full year next year of Derek Carr in that system and not having to deal with Michael Thomas and blah, blah, blah. Rashid Shaheed should have a nice little breakout too. Dontayvion Wicks as well. Establishing himself with Jaden Reed as Jordan Love's most reliable 2 targets, that's going to go a long way. And we talked at the top of this podcast about following these guys through the playoffs and how they perform. these playoffs could do a whole lot to increase Wick's breakoutness, I guess. If he catches two touchdowns and a Green Bay win this weekend, people are going to be
Yeah,
talking about him all off season.
for sure. For sure. Okay. I got another one here, and it's Trey McBride. He started the season slow, but completely went off when Kyler returned to the lineup in week 10. McBride is the tight end 3 during that span, and if you were patient enough with him, he probably helped lead you to a deep run in your league. McBride was drafted as the tight end 32 and finished the year as the tight end 7. I can't wait to see what next year brings with him and this Cardinals team. The Cardinals have indicated that Kyler is their future and will likely draft a legit number 1 wide receiver. I would love to see Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors there. If that were to happen, I am very excited for McBride and the Cardinals' offensive players moving forward. McBride is my tight end 1 next year. I have firmly flag planted that, and it has been well documented all over. So here we go. Trey McBride, baby.
Yeah, I heard you on with the football guys, and you said Trey McBride is the tight end 1, and they were like, that is so controversial and so right. Yeah, and it's funny. I feel like, and this is more kind of tongue in cheek than anything else, but I feel like we're doing the viewers a disservice with this, because these are guys that we've been talking about all year as being like quality candidates to, start and sit and whatever throughout all the weeks of the weekend warmup. We talked about Trey McBride. We talked about Dontavian Wicks. We told you guys to get these guys in your lineup, get them off the waiver wires in your dynasty, and they're only primed for bigger years next year. Now, I say doing a disservice kind of like as a joke, because these are names that you've heard before, but this is just reinforcing everything that we've been pounding for the last 4 or 5 months. These guys are good. They're good football players. We've been telling you about them, and the numbers have borne out for the season. So, like I said, keep taking notes. Keep taking notes.
All right, here's another noteworthy player to keep your eyes on, and that's George Pickens. Pickens was one of the hardest players to peg heading into this season. Pickens had a breakout season heading into 2023. Pickens was being out-targeted by a wide margin by Deontay Johnson. Pickens took advantage of Deontay Johnson's hamstring injury that caused him to go on the IR early this season. Pickens had an up and down season, but since Mason Rudolph has taken over the starting job, Pickens has exploded and has been the wide receiver 4 since week 15. Playing the best 3-game span of his career, Pickens during that time has a 28.6% target share, good for 7th overall in that span. 373 yards, good for 3rd during that span. These are super impressive numbers. The Steelers are playing good football, and their running game are opening things up big time for their passing game. I have Pickens as a riser heading into 2024. Look for him to gain major value this offseason. I have Pickens as a top 16 wide receiver headed into 2024.
Woo! How much we have evolved and grown over the last 6 months, Mike Lindberg.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, I have been huge on Pickens from the beginning. Rookie season, a lot of people forgot he missed most of his last season at Georgia because he was coming off a knee surgery, wound up getting into the national championship game and having an incredible play. Accumulating yards. One thing that I want everybody to look at, especially if you have access to a metrics calculator, metrics machine, is look at George Pickens and his air yard share, and then look at his yak. Because the value that you're getting, you said 373 yards since week 15, right? Week 15, 16, 17, 18, 373 yards. I want to say that a large portion of that, and probably proportionally ranking him among the leaders, is going to be his yak. These aren't like routes that he's running and Mason Rudolph is hitting
Number
him
one.
50 yards down the field. These are medium routes that he is absolutely busting to the house. It reminds me a lot of Travis Etienne last year
Yeah.
in 2022, last year, not 2023,
Yeah. Yeah.
where his value came from him like busting big plays, not necessarily like his number of touches or, it was when he got the ball, what he did to be explosive. And that's George Pickens all the way. And you said number one in Yak?
Yeah, in those games, yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And that wasn't always his game though. He was a contested catch guy. For it was always needing him to get some more target share, so that when those plays were to happen, he can open up and make those yak yards, and that's what's happening now, right? It wasn't
And
he wasn't getting in the end zone. Those big plays weren't happening. He was getting tackled. Like it wasn't. It was those contested catches. That was his bread and butter his rookie season, and now he's evolved into something way more than what he was, and he's got a
there's a
lot
big
of.
difference.
Yeah.
Matt Canada.
Yeah, yeah, and that was a huge barrier, and I documented that as well. So all these barriers are gone. Pickett's not there really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He emerged past Deontay Johnson during his injury, and that needed to happen. Matt Canada's gone. Everything that George Pickens needed to happen this year happened for him, fell into his place, and now he's set up to be, super successful, and I'm happy for him. Good for
You
him.
know who I think would be a really, really great fit for Pittsburgh, whose draft stock or their draft spot is going to be totally affected by the fact that they actually made the playoffs. But if they go out this week and they have kind of a mid-teens draft pick, Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix
Yeah.
would be a great fit in Pittsburgh. Take over for Pickett, wash their hands of Pickett.
Yeah.
I know Pickett is he's being a crybaby. Well, that's the nicest way to say it. Because he lost his job because he wasn't that great. But I think Bo Nix can go in and kind of replicate or even improve upon what Mason Rudolph has done. Because I don't see this. I don't see the Steelers going into 2024 going, Mason Rudolph is our guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't and I don't see them saying that about Pickett either. I think they're going to do something. So
I
yeah,
agree.
I like Bo Nix for Pittsburgh. So all of these risers that I'm following, that you just gave us, Mike, I took notes. My hand is below the level of the camera, so you can't really see. You can see the screen shake when I'm writing stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm taking notes, and so I'm watching these guys. I'm looking at opportunities to kind of. Am I going to try and grab them now? Am I going to try and grab them later? Use those draft picks like we were talking about before. How about some fallers? How about some guys that like
Yeah.
say I have them on my roster, but everybody else thinks they're still good or still gonna or they're still dreaming on them, and I'm gonna go out and trade them now for those picks when the picks are at their lowest value.
Yeah. So there is what's called an age cliff for many for every position, and they range from age to age depending on what position you're playing. Running back, obviously the longevity at running back is a lot lower than a wide receiver per se, right? There's a lot more golden years from a wide receiver in production. So when I'm talking about a faller here, I'm targeting a lot of these older running backs, and you're gonna see three of them in my lineup for my fallers here. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Austin Eckler, and it's safe.
Ooh,
Yeah.
earmuffs, Charger fans, earmuffs.
Mm. Yeah, you're not going to want to hear it, but those Charger fans are probably already seen it happen. They've seen their team in disarray, and it's not going to get better. It's not going to get better right now. It'll get better in the future. They have to figure out their coaching situation, and I think they'll find somebody there. But it's safe to say that the age cliff has hit for Austin Eckler. He is 1 year removed as the RB1 finish and was supposed to be set up for another smash year. It didn't exactly come to fruition. Eckler had his worst season since taking over the starting job away from Melvin Gordon in 2019. Eckler was one of the first two RBs picked in redraft this year and was still a top five dynasty running back. His stock is plummeting, and if you can use his name recognition to turn Eckler into a younger prospect, I would be trying to do that yesterday. Eckler has fallen out of the top 10 and is now pushing RB2 status in dynasty startups. Eckler is an asset that is losing value by the second. Eckler finished 2023 as the RB26. However, he did miss 4 games, but still only the RB21 in points per game. Eckler is yesterday's news. Get out now. Try and trade him up for somebody that's younger. Get that name recognition if you can, and see if you can trade him up.
I mean, you talked in our last podcast about your breakouts. And if you are able to move an Austin Eckler for a Roshan Johnson, for a Condre Miller, I don't think you're going to be able to go straight up for Tyjae Spears. I think he's got a little bit more helium than that. But if you can go grab somebody like Roshan or Condre Miller, somebody who is totally not rosterably productive this season, but still has that upside, and dump Austin Eckler for him. Now the age cliff comes quick, and going into the 2022 season, I was out on a small handful of guys. Eckler was one of them. Henry was another. Dalvin Cook was another. All three of them had absolutely fantastic 2022s. So there are two adages in Dynasty roster construction. Number one, it's better to get out early than late, right? So if you have Austin Eckler or Derrick Henry, if you have Austin Eckler or some other older running backs that might come up in this list, it's better to have gotten away from them last year or this year. The other thing is we talk about the longevity of running backs, and in Dynasty, if you have a running back that gives you 3 straight years of top 12 to top 24 production, after that third year, that's about when to get out of it. And you said that Melvin Gordon, 2019, or you said Eckler took over for Gordon in 2019. So you have 2020, 2021, 2022. That's those 3 years. And what happened in 2023? He plummeted. So that goes by the 3-year standard. So 3 years for a guy in your lineup. Next year, I'm looking at Breece Hall's 3rd year. That makes me very sad, but still. And with an injury, maybe I'll hedge and say that this was Breece's real rookie year, that kind of thing. But 3 years on that, and always get out earlier than later. So who's your next guy?
All right.
Well, it's not Derrick Henry, is it?
There's no doubt that Derrick Henry is slowing down. With an expiring contract in 2023, there was an opportunity for Spears to carve out a role in 2023, and he has become the Titans' #1 running back headed into 2024 right now. Derrick Henry gave his emotional farewell speech to Titans faithful, and now his future is up in the air. Henry should land quite easily in 2024 with a healthy workload as either a lead back or a complimentary back. He just isn't the same perennial top 5 running back like he used to be. People were still drafting Henry as a top 5 back in redraft in 2023 and was still a top 10 dynasty asset. People have been fading Henry for years due to his heavy workload in the past. I am jumping on this bandwagon now. Henry is a declining asset that needs to be moved for a younger asset ASAP before it is actually too late. Henry is outside the top 15 in redraft at the position, and outside the top 20 at running back moving forward in Dynasty. So, he could find a role next year and an injury away from another big season, but he's being faded. Depending on the landing spot, like say if he goes to Dallas, obviously there's going to be upside there for him to find the end zone. But his years of 200 yards rushing per game are definitely down the drain, and look to move on for him.
I've got 4 names for you: Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, and Ezekiel Elliott. Those 4 guys are part of the whole like last 5-6 years, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, and
Mhm.
what happened to them this year? Aside from Elliott, Elliott's
Yeah.
he got a job and kind of stuck there. But the other three guys, Cook, Kareem Hunt, and Melvin Gordon, what happened? They sat there on the free agent list. They sat there. They didn't have a team. It wasn't until later in the season that they actually got picked up. That's what I see happening for Derrick Henry next year. I don't think any NFL team is going to look at his age and his mileage and
Mhm.
go, we're going to invest heavy. But Derrick Henry has a certain opinion of himself. And granted, he has every right, every reason to believe in himself. He's King Henry, right? And I don't think any offer is going to come along that's going to like scratch that
Yeah.
itch until later on into the season. And looking at Eckler and Henry, they're a perfect pair for this comparison because what we're going to be doing this offseason in assessing our rosters is we're going to look at what's happening in the running back room currently. Now, in both places, you have coaching changes, but in Tennessee, you have a young upstart running back who is going to be taking over the position. With Eckler, you don't have that. So with Eckler, it's kind of more of a wait and see. Is the new Chargers regime going to come in and think that Eckler is viable? Are they still going to try and go into 2024 with Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler? We know Henry's out, so Henry's not going to be able to bring you as much value. Eckler is going to be able to bring much more value because there's more of a question mark with Eckler, and he's one season removed from being the number one. So it could have been the situation. It could have been Herbert's injury. It
Yeah.
could have been the Brandon Staley ousting. It could have been all that stuff, and Eckler is going to be coming back. So count on that value that Eckler is still going to retain. Henry's value is going to fall much faster, and so if you have either one of them, get rid of Henry now and maybe capitalize on Eckler. Well, get rid of both of them now. That's kind of the point.
Mhm.
But the difference in what you're going to be able to get for him is going to be Henry. It's King Henry. Eckler, there's a possibility he might be back. When coaching changes are made, and the draft comes and you haven't done anything and the Chargers go out and they draft Braylon Allen or they draft somebody else who they know is going to come in and be RB1 immediately, then all of a sudden Eckler's value is gone. So do with those two what you will.
Yeah. Okay. I got another running back to edge out these running backs, and that's Joe Mixon, who signed a 2-year deal this offseason and is under contract with the Bengals through 2024. However, this contract is an easy one to lose if the Bengals decide to do so, and it's probably going to happen because it's a large cap hit that they would take if they do keep him on. Mixon has shown to have some juice left in the tank the last couple games, but this is a mirage. Get out now while these games are still fresh and, people want to swing a trade still to unload him. So, Mixon finished 2023 as the RB7 in PPR formats. We've seen Mixon's efficiency and his snap share plummet this year, and rookie Chase Brown has come on as of late and is stealing valuable snaps from Mixon. I'm looking at Brown to continue to earn more playing time this offseason. I'm looking for the torch to be passed over. Mixon's stock is falling fast, and he has surpassed the age cliff for running backs. So with all this said, there may be someone in your league that views Mixon as a top 10 running back in 2024. So, try and get on that now. Look for his stock to continue to plummet all offseason. Mixon is one of my biggest fallers headed into 2024.
Yep, he's another guy past that 3-year window.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got two more here, and one is a Chief. Okay, so just like Derrick Henry, we have been waiting for Travis Kelce to start his decline. Arguably the best offensive tight end ever play the game, Travis Kelce actually played most of his year at an elite level. After week 13, Kelce was the tight end one in PPR formats, but I think the long, deep playoff runs for the Chiefs have been taking its toll on him lately. So from weeks 14 to 17, Kelsey's play has plummeted. He has been the tight end 14 during that time frame. His target share has dropped to 18%, and those 4 games, he was only able to muster 19 receptions for 171 yards. Not the elite production we have come to expect from Kelsey, especially when those games occurred during the fantasy football playoffs. Subsequently, Rashee Rice has exploded during that time frame, has become Mahomes' #1 target. His 24% target share was good for 27 receptions for 347 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs will surely be adding some playmakers at wide receiver this offseason, further clouding Kelsey's target share, especially if he's indeed losing a step. Kelsey, if he plays next year, will probably land outside the top 5 at the position, with the younger talent barreling up the boards. Try and move Kelsey now while he has an elite status in most circles.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Travis Kelce's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Well, he's the GOAT, but the GOAT besides Tony Gonzalez. Now we talked about this before. There's some little chitter chatter out there about the Chiefs drafting Brock Bowers, and that makes much more sense to me the more that I think about it. With Rashee Rice there, with Travis Kelce sticking around, there's rumors he's going to retire, whatever. I meant to say Mr. Swift. There's rumors he's going to be retiring. I mean, if I'm Mr. Swift, what do I want to do? Do I want to like beat myself up, keep getting myself up for games, or latch onto my billionaire girlfriend and travel around the world with her as she goes and sings and parties and stuff? You saw them New Year's Eve with the Mahomeses. You saw the Maatos that night. They were having a good time. Now, why do you want to go sustain concussions, wreck your body when you've got the literal globe at your fingertips and Taylor Swift holding your hand? Like, so I can kind of buy into maybe there's some retirement talk, but the Chiefs have something in Isaiah Pacheco, they think. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably gone. I love me some Deneric Prince, and I want to see him on the active roster next year. But Brock Bowers makes total sense. If Travis Kelce stays, he teaches Brock Bowers how to be Travis Kelce. And if he retires, Brock Bowers, #1 tight end prospect for the last 3 years, I think that's a perfect fit. So I hope it doesn't happen. I would hate for Brock Bowers to be part of the Kansas City Chiefs chiefdom, but I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I'd love to see him in the kingdom.
There's no kings. Kings are elected, or kings are born. Chiefs are elected.
All right. Okay, I got one more here, and then we'll sign off. And I know it's gonna be hard for you to hear this one. He's one of your homeboys there.
I don't want to hear this one.
Many people.
I don't like this one. I hate you.
Don't. I know. And it hurts me too because I liked him. I still like him. Many people, including myself.
Blah. I'm not listening to Mike.
Many people, including myself, were Sam Howell truthers to start the season. I had Howell pegged as a top 15 quarterback this year. He actually finished the year as the QB 11. Howell stormed into 2023 and was a league winner in his first 13 games of the season, where he was the quarterback 4. His value skyrocketed. Since week 13, though, Howell is the QB 37. He struggled mightily down the stretch, due mainly because of a shitty offensive line, and finally got pulled in week 15 in favor of Jacoby Brissett. If Brissett hadn't gotten injured, he would have been the starter for the Commanders to finish the year. Moving ahead, there will be a new regime headed into Washington as they let Ron Rivera go this week. The Commanders are rumored to be heavily involved in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes and will surely draft the next starting quarterback for them in the upcoming draft. Howell, a first half league winner, I'm thinking will hardly be rosterable at this point next year. Unless you get moved into a better situation, try and move him now while you still can, while there's value in Sam Howell.
I can't think of a better candidate for a dynasty dilemma than Sam Howell.
Yeah, man.
Number one, because I own Sam Howell in my home league. Number two, because of his first 13-week performance. Number three, because of the regime change that's coming in Washington. What is going to happen? Now, if I'm a GM and I understand, and I've had this conversation quite a few times over the last week about quite a few situations, quite a few quarterbacks. It stands out to me. We have a traditional history in the NFL of quarterbacks coming in and holding a clipboard. Sam Howell was a second-year guy. This was his first full year starting. He was having a better year than Jordan Love. He started to break down because of offensive line play. He didn't have time to get rid of the ball. He was a play extender at North Carolina. The guy's got feet, and that's one of the reasons I was so high on him, was his potential for like breaking out of the pocket, extending plays, and picking up those rushing fantasy points as a quarterback. All of that kind of played out, except for the fact that Terry McLaurin got hurt. He didn't have a viable tight end, and his offensive line could not block anybody. So Washington was kind of in the thick of it for the first kind of half of the season. Then they started taking really bad losses because their defense started breaking down. They traded away Chase Young. They traded away Montez Sweat. Their offensive line couldn't give Howell any time to do anything. He didn't even have time to run away. That was how bad they were. He is a play extender, and he couldn't even get away. So if I'm a new coach or GM coming in, I'm going to look at what happened this year with Sam Howell and go, you know what? If he did it before, he can do it again. There's a lot of talent there. And I don't necessarily need to spend the draft capital of going up and taking Caleb Williams when I can take a fairly high draft pick and go get a Phaneuftia from Penn State and protect the quarterback. Guys get 5-year contracts. That team has Sam Howell at a very low contract price because he was a later round pick. They don't have to pay a first rounder. They can watch what he does over the next 4 years. And a lot of the talk in the Twitter sphere has been about Sam Howell sucks. I totally disagree. And this is my Derek Carr syndrome. It's my Derek Carr disease. I see the upside. I see the downside, but I can account for the downside, and I can account for Sam Howell's downside. I see him continuing on. He's not a Zach Wilson, where he was terrible and had a bad offensive line. He was good and had a terrible offensive line. You know what I mean? You don't take the most sacks in the NFL in a season and put up the numbers he did and as a bad quarterback. That's, the David Carr, Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold. That's their space. Sam Howell's not in that space. So he is a faller. I will give you that. But a faller to the point where buy him at his value.
Yeah, it'll be weird to see what happens there, right? I mean, that's why he's falling. Like, there's some variables there. There's a lot of chatter. And the Commanders are in a position where they have new ownership that might want to make a splash and, show the league what they're wanting to do here and start a new regime. So we never know what happened there. So that's what kind of is, I see the chatter going on there, and I am taking for what it's worth. And after what I saw at the end of the season and that offensive line, if they go ahead and get a quarterback, that offensive line is going to be not repairable anyhow. So see what happens.
Yeah,
right?
Go get an offensive line. Take Jalen McMillan in the second round. Get a third round receiver. Pair them with McLaurin. Like Curtis Samuel is good enough, but he's not great. You got Jahan Dotson in the building. Scheme some plays for him. You got Antonio Gibson, who Eric Bieniemy knows what to do with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. What if they had a competent offensive line. Go build up that defense. There's so much potential in Washington at this point. One of the things in your fallers, you had 5 guys, and 4 of them are old and falling. And one of them just finished his first year as a starter, second year in the league, and is a faller. And what that tells me is those other 4 guys are sell. And the other guy who's a faller that's young is a buy.
Bye. And that's what we're talking. Good.
Yeah.
Good analysis. Sweet, man.
Yeah. And that, what just happened, dear friends, is the first episode of the old podcast, Dynasty Obsession, no off season. I've been Big Boned. He's been FF Canuck. Bear with us. Thank you for watching. I could tell the growing pains that we're going through with new format. I wrote a bunch of stream of consciousness stuff for my notes this week. Didn't organize it probably as well as I should have. And I think I could tell. I don't know if you could tell. I want to get some more graphics in there, like maybe some more screen shares to like throw stuff
Sweet,
up
yeah.
so that like more of a PowerPoint. That takes a lot of work and maybe a producer. So it gets harder. I gotta hit that learning curve and bring better content to you guys. So I promise that moving forward, that's what we're going to do. Next week, we'll be back. I'll have what's going on with the Dynasty calendar for after wildcard weekend, mid to end of January. What are we doing? Mike will have some more content for you. Please stick with us. This podcast is only going to grow. We're only going to get better. You're only going to get happier. And with that, producer,
Peace out.
I hope you win. I don't think I got it. No, I didn't get it.